This is my only redneck picture Jamie allowed me to have. If you can see, I tried to make a little arrow that said this was the temperature controlled chamber where you ferment in, but she didn't think it was very funny, so she cut out all the other stuff.
I don't think other people do that.
Based on the laughs, you know.
Jamie, it's funny.
Yeah, this is, you have to have the truck. The truck's out in the parking lot. I just brought it in here to.
I don't think it's funny. I think it just
Right.
makes sense.
But anyway, it's repurposing an air conditioner to control your fermentation temperature. And there are many ways to control your fermentation temperature. And I just picked this one because I've done it before. So, what good is a glycol chiller anyway? Now, I'm not going to read all the slides because you guys know how to read, except for Eric. But this is the first one that I built, right? So it's all. I know this one's all out in the open. I left it all exposed so everybody can see, you know, all the components and everything. But our glycol chiller is right in this box here. And I know John was talking about how he built one too. And on the sides, John, I have those like vents right there, but it's the whole, it takes up the whole box.
How much glycol that thing hold?
So, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think there's 48. I think it's a 48 quart cooler, but it doesn't. I didn't fill it all the way up with 48 quarts. But it's not all glycol either, so it's a 2-to-1 mixture. But I'll get to that. And we have fermented 4 beers at the same time with our glycol chiller, all at different temperatures at the same exact time. So.
Fancy.
Which is pretty cool, right?
Redneck engineering.
Right. That's kind of why we did it, so we could do that. So when we built this one, ours, not this one, but the one we built, glycol chillers were about $1,000 a pop. So I think we made this like 6 years ago, in 2019 or 5 years ago, whatever, and they were about $1,000 a pop for what we wanted, and that was pretty expensive. So I was just like, well, I'll try to do this. And we bought this one that I have in here, I think, for $65, the air conditioner, and then. But they have come down a little bit. You can get cheaper ones now, but they're still, the good ones are more expensive. So this is the rule that I followed here. I'm known to complicate simple things. I'm also known to every once in a while simplify complicated things. So my dad used to always tell me, keep it simple, and I'll let you figure out the last letter to this, but
Son.
that's who he was referring to was.
Keep
This letter, I'll let you guys figure it out, but yeah, that's.
Keep it stupid simple?
Yeah, keep it stupid simple, yeah. But my goal for this was just to, I have a lot of tools and stuff, but just to use basic tools and to just make this as bare bones basic as I could. Not that everybody here couldn't do what I did, but I just tried to do it very simple and very basic. So that's what I did here. So what I used here is, Jamie actually got two of those window air conditioner units, and they're the bare bones cheap ones. I think it's even Amazon brand, right? So it's like 5,000 BTU, which is about the smallest you can get. And I think the square footage was like 150 square feet. That's what it cooled. So it's the basic one. I think brand new is like $180. But this one we got for $25. Brand new out of the box. And if you look around, you'll find it. Jamie got 2 of them actually for $25 on a quick bid. And so I have another one also. And then, but I looked right before I came here yesterday, and I think you can find a bunch that were like $30 to $100. So anywhere in between that range, you can find a bunch. You want the analog, the manual. Don't get the digital ones. That'll just complicate everything. And remember, rule number 1, just keep it simple. Get the manual, analog, dial, knobs. it'll make your life real simple.
So if you don't get the analog, it will only get down to about 64 degrees.
And see, I didn't even know that because I followed rule number 1, right? So that makes sense. Right.
Don't do it.
So with the cooler, I got at a thrift store for $4. So $25 for the air conditioner, $4 for the cooler. And then you need 1 wire nut, need temperature controllers, which those are the 2 things. You'll probably spend more for those 2 things than the other parts. And then you need a submersible pump and tubing. And you need this food-safe propylene glycol, which if you don't know what that is, I'll get into that later when we have a slide on that. And then you need spray foam insulation. You can use an aquarium chiller fan, and then I made a plywood base, and I'll get into that later, but you don't have to do that. And then casters to put underneath there just because it's kind of awkward to move around. I only have it on that dolly because I had to haul it here, load it in the truck by myself, and get it out of the truck and bring it in here. So I just set it on the dolly because that made my life a lot easier. So tools, I just used a handheld screwdriver because again, with the idea of keeping it simple. You only need this stuff here for cutting into the cooler. So whatever you can use a hacksaw, you can use a hole saw, a Dremel with a cutoff blade, you can use a multi-tool, whatever you want. You can even use a grinder with a cutoff blade, but you can just use a hacksaw and a power drill. It's not that big of a deal. If you have a wire stripper, that makes your life a little easier, but you can use a knife and just cut 1/2 inch off the insulation and electrical tape or not. I've definitely done it without it, so here's the steps. I'm not gonna read everything, but I'll go, because we're gonna go over those, but these are basically just the steps that we're gonna follow. And I'll discuss this in the slides. So the first thing is you get this air conditioner, right? And I'm telling you what I did with this one, and I realize that if you get a used air conditioner, and if you do this, I advise you to buy a used air conditioner. They work great. The first one I've had for 6 years, it's worked great. It says turn your AC fan knob to max, so just turn it full bore. And the reason why you do that is because you're going to have to remove the knobs to get all the covers off. Remove all the screws. They're just basic little screws that hold these on. There's not that many, but it's just the case. You're removing the case. And I don't know if you saw the one back there, but you will here in a minute. You're just removing the case so you can access the inside of the air conditioner. And put the knobs back on or not. I mean, it's easier if you just put them back on so you don't lose them. And then you just move the cover to the side. So Jamie put this, here's where I remove the knobs, right? So I'm taking this case apart, I'm just removing everything because it comes all nice and compact and you're just tearing it apart, right? And then if you put them back on, so here's where the knobs were. And I didn't realize this, but you had to get this front casing off, you had to remove the knobs, and I was yanking on it and nothing was happening, but then I figured it out. It only took me about 20 minutes, right? But I got it off. So there's 2 difficult parts in this thing, and I don't even think this is difficult. This thing right here is the control panel. It's the control panel because there's 2 knobs that are they're connected to like a dial switch that are inside this little silver box, right? So you have to find that because that's what you have to adjust. So the knobs are attached to it, so it's not that difficult to find. So once you get the front case off, you can find this little box, and then you remove the screws that connect it to the panel because it's attached to the panel, and you just have to get it loose so you can access it, right? It is pretty self-explanatory once you saw it. I took a bunch of pictures, but we can't put them all in here, so. So this is the box, that little box that I just showed you right here. I took it off out of the case, laid it down the side, and opened up the box. There's the two little knobs that tells you that's the electrical panel. This is the whole thing that controls the whole shebang there. And there's just two little dial switches right there. So you open it up and this is what you get, right? A bunch of wires, just looks like a light switch or something like that. So you locate the thermostat wiring and control panel. So there's two switches. One just controls the temperature of the air conditioner. The other one just turns it on, right? It turns it on to a fan, and then it turns it on the air conditioner part. There's like three switches, like a fan, low one, and then a max. You want the air conditioner to be on max, but the other one is just a dial switch that just controls the temperature, and it has its own thermostat. So we are going to locate the thermostat, and you know which one is the thermostat because see this little crazy little line right here? Now let me see if I can go back and maybe it'll be. See this line right here? That is the thermostat which is connected right to the front of the air conditioner. And you just follow that line, it'll take you right to where you need to go, right? But we don't want this, right? Because we're going to control the air conditioner with the Inkbird. So that is why we're accessing this whole thing. And it's really just finding these, there's one with, and there's only two wires, and then there's the thermostat that connects to it. We are going to bypass that switch, which is as simple as just cutting these two lines or taking them off and then cutting them and then wire tying them together. So as you can see, we're just bypassing the thermostat, and all I did was remove those two wires and then I stripped them back and then I just spliced them together. That's the only electrical thing you have to do for this entire thing. So if you can, anybody here who's ever like wired their own light at home or changed their outlets or updated their outlets or whatever, that is more difficult than this. The only difficult thing is locating which one it is. And I know it's a little confusing because there's only two dial switches. The one that the thermostat's connected to, and it has two wires, that's the only one you have to mess with. And all you're doing is cutting them and splicing them together because you want the Inkbird thermostat to control the temperature, not this one. And even if you didn't do this, I suspect it would still work. It just might get cross signals at times, but I don't know. It's pretty simple just to do this, right? So that's all I did. I just bypassed it, wire tied it together, and then wrapped it with electrical tape, put it back together. So I made a base. You don't have to make a base. I had a bunch of leftover parts, so I just made a quick base to set it on and put cast wheels underneath it. If I was doing it, like if I lived here in Kansas City, I'd probably just like get one of those $5 pallets, and I would just put wheels underneath, or just set it on the floor and just set the whole thing on that. I wouldn't even like build anything. But it's not really necessary. You can set it on the floor, but if you ever want to move it out of the way, I suspect if you do this, you're gonna have to either put it in your garage or your basement, or maybe you have a room that you brew in that you could want to be able to roll it around, but that's it. So here is the most important part of the entire operation. And I don't know if Jason's still here, but you need to bend the copper tubing, which is difficult. I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's not, the copper tubing is delicate. It's not as delicate as you think, but it's more delicate than you have to keep in mind that it's delicate. So, and those are the copper pipes, right? So if I go back to here, let me see, go back.
Hey, Cody.
Yeah.
When you bend metal like that, like do that a lot in plumbing, it almost looks like a spring.
Right.
Okay.
I've seen that, except those are used for ones that are cut open, and this one is
You can't get
attached.
it around.
Right.
Okay.
But you can use.
You could use something that you could.
They do
wrap around.
have copper pipe bending tools, which I didn't use. If I did this again, I might do that because I did have to crank on it. But, so bending the tubes It's stronger than you think, but it is, if you make a mistake and it kinks, you're gonna have refrigerant or Freon come flying out when you turn it on. Because this whole air conditioner is run by a compressor, and when that compressor kicks on, it's gonna pressurize and then it's gonna spray out. So,
Buy two for $25.
right. So this whole thing is just bending this, and it is all compacted, and you're kind of spreading it out when you put this condenser inside the cooler. So all I can tell you is take your time with it. If you do this, take your time, bend it a little bit, step away from it. Because it's real easy to go, just do one more, and you're going to kink it. And you're just trying to avoid kinking it. That's all you're trying to do. You're just trying to manipulate it. And I didn't say this, but inside the air conditioner, there's a whole lot of styrofoam to keep everything spaced apart. I just ripped all that out. So don't, if you open, when you open it up, just rip all the styrofoam out, and that's all you have to do, and you just break it apart and rip it out. So you don't want anything in the way of what you're trying to do.
Cody, I think on that part right there, people that want to actually know what you're talking about, looking at it live.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a lot more.
Yeah.
It's, unless you've done it, it's really tough to kind of explain it in a couple of steps because it's a.
Right, in one or two pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. This is the trickiest part. But it's not. The pipe is not as delicate as you think. But once you start thinking that way, you're going to go too far. Oh, sorry.
So I use copper tubing in some of my water or cooling for my computers. Using a heat gun on it makes that copper easier to bend.
Does that help too?
Yes. So
So
using a heat gun on it would be a good idea.
I read that also, but does that make it kink easier though? That was my one thought. It's like if you heat it up and you start to bend it, would it start kinking easier?
And there's Freon inside, so.
Yes, you don't get it too hot, but I mean,
Yeah.
my water cooling, I've got stuff that I use to help with the bends.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that, getting it a little hotter makes that copper easier to malleable and it doesn't keep as much.
Okay. I mean, my advice is just,
Be very careful.
and every air conditioner is going to be a little bit different. But the one thing I want to show you is if you see these pipes that are going in the side, and this is important, and you'll understand later, but when you take this apart, these pipes are going in the side, and you're eventually trying, at least for this one, I'm turning this whole condenser coils up top, and you'll understand later why, which is kind of why you have to bend it and stretch it out.
You kink it, you just throw the.
So I spent this is why you get this on Craigslist or EquipBid or Facebook Marketplace. For $25, if I kink it and Freon came out, I'm throwing the whole thing away and I'm gonna go get another air conditioner. But again, Harbor Freight sells a little copper bending tool I haven't used for $10, and then this little bend here, I assume that's how they made that. So it might undo it, I don't know. But I did this by hand, so you can do it by hand too. The important thing to remember when you're bending this pipe is don't turn the condenser, just bend the pipe with both hands. So hold the pipe in two places and then kind of bend it apart a little bit. But if you hold the condenser, that's when you're gonna start finding kinks. So manipulate it with your hands, manipulate the pipe, not the parts. All right. So prepping the cooler. All right, does everybody understand that part? I don't want to cut anybody off because that is the most important part of the whole thing. And I'm sure you guys, I've been in this club a long time. I know how smart everybody is in this club. So if I can do it, everybody else can do it. So no. So here's the prepping the cooler, right? So I got this cooler for $4, and there is a lot of coolers you can get. And for $4, I was just like, okay. There's ones that are probably better sized than this, but I wasn't going to spend the money for them, so I just like, well, whatever they have at the thrift store, that's what I'm going to get, and I'm going to make it work. But as you can see these little loops right here that are facing up towards us? If I go back to here, these are on the side. right? So this is what I was trying to explain to you guys. This is now facing up because I wanted these pipes right here up top, because I have to cut into the cooler, and the cooler has to be able to hold fluid with the glycol fluid. So that is why I turned the condenser coils upright. So that is what you're trying to accomplish it, so it'll fit in that cooler. So to prep the cooler, you just need to cut a notch in the cooler, and I just use basic tools. I have all like the multi-tools and all that, grinders and everything, but I didn't use that. I just used the drill and hacksaw.
When you say cut a notch at the top, it's just to allow the line clearance so you
You
can.
want it to sit down inside the cooler.
It's
Yeah.
also your volume level.
Yeah.
Think about it, how much you cut out of there will dictate technically your volume level in that cooler.
And
You
they,
don't want to cut too much, but have enough for.
right. And I want to be able to put the lid back on, Dan.
That's what I, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm basically just cutting enough for this condenser coils. That's what that's called, condenser coils. Not that I knew this before this presentation.
Does it go all the way to the bottom?
Mine does, partially it does. Mine's kind of an angle. If I mess with it more, I could get it to go all the way down to the bottom, but I don't need to, right? I just need to go in there, and the more you cut into this, the less fluid you can pour into. So you're kind of trying to bend it so it just fits in there as much as it can. It won't cover this condenser coil completely, but you want to get as much fluid as you can in there. So it's just kind of figuring that part out. So Eric is going to, this is almost over. Eric, so we're going to kick this on so you can hear how loud it is in there. But what temperature is that Inkbird telling us is the cooler right now? 85.5. So right now it says that the cooler, the glycol, it's really just water, but 85.5 degrees. So we're turning it on, and then we're gonna see, when I'm done talking, what the temperature is to see how well that cools it down. If it blows up and all the lights go off, everybody just pick up your stuff and leave, because I'm not an electrician, so anyway,
What's the, have you ever had a problem, or what do you think the risk of is, of that refrigerant leaking out of there?
Yes. So before, and that's what I was going to tell you about with Jason Elder when he was here. He built one, and I remember this because he told me this back like 8 years ago. If you kink those copper lines that were right here, if you kink them enough, a hole will pop open, and the compressor. This is all pressurized that runs the refrigeration through it. It will spray out. So if you ever, before I did any of this, I turned it on, and you will see like this pink fluid. It might be pink, might be a different color. A fluid will leak out, it'll spray out because it's pressurized, like 300 PSI. It'll spray out, and you know you ruined it. And that's the whole point of this part here. The most delicate and important part is not kinking those lines. So that's where you just have to take your time. And it might be an easier way to do it than I do. Again, this is the second one I've ever done. It's
There's not, when you're doing the redneck way.
Yeah.
there's not-
You're right. And every air conditioner is going to be different. So it's not. This is the most cheapest basic air conditioner I could find, and that's what I used.
You said that was an Amazon purchase?
Well, it was an equipment purchase, but it was an Amazon air conditioner. But when I looked, there's like 4 or 5 different name brands that look exactly alike when you find pictures of them inside. So we're back here, and I just marked it where I wanted the lines to go, and then all I did was I took a drill.
Okay.
Most of us have a drill, and you can use this. I use a spade bit, but you could use any sort of drill bit, and you don't even have to use this. You can just use a hacksaw. I just drilled a hole, kind of marked it. I didn't even really measure very much, but I just drilled a hole, and then you can see the hole where I drilled with the spade bit, and then I just cut down with the hacksaw to match up the hole. It was not anything special. And all I did that's how I cut that notch. and you'll see it back there when we go back there in the tube. So cut a notch into the cooler, then drill the hole. It's not, wherever you manipulate that condenser coil is where you want to cut the notch. And then I just cut, again, I use the hacksaw, but you can use a multi-tool, you can use a Dremel, you can use anything you want. So you can kind of see there's the notch that I cut in there. And yet, as you can see, here's the condenser, and it's sitting upright. And the only reason I have to turn it that way is because that's where it enters the condenser. So I placed it in there, and again, it was nice and perpendicular when I did it, but I did drive here, and it got a little cattywampus there. So don't worry about it. All it has to do is cool the fluid. Hey, Eric, what did you say it was, the temperature?
We started at 85.5.
Okay, 85.5. Remember 85.5. And if it warms up, then again, I blame Eric Martin for messing that up. So all you do is place the condenser in the cooler, and then you place the chiller components in the cooler, and that's like the probes from the Inkbird. And you place the pump in there, and I'll point all that out when we get in there. The other things you might, and I didn't bring this, but there's those little cheap aquarium coolers or fans that you might see. The one I use at home, I put that aquarium fan in there because it circulates the glycol. Because it comes in and it goes into your fermenter and it comes out and it's warmer. And if you don't circulate it, if you draw it from the same spot, which I could have designed it differently, but I didn't understand it at the time, and it wouldn't have done that, but I didn't. So I put one of those fans in there, and that fan just kicks on when the AC unit kicks on, and that just circulates the fluid in the fermenter. So here is the glycol that I use. And we got ours from Tractor Supply. And I don't know if you guys know anything about glycol. There's two types. There's ethanol and there's propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is supposed to be, I don't know which is, there's like food safe glycol and there's like food grade. Whichever is the lesser of the two, that's what propylene glycol is. But they use it, farmers use it, it goes in like chicken feed, goes in like cattle feed somewhat. And they also use it they'll use it as like a antifreeze. And the reason is because it's food safe, right? Now, how we use it for us, you'll have like a spike fermenter with a coiled chiller or an SX Brewtech, or a Blickman chiller coil, and it just runs through there. So the only way it's going to get inside your beer is if the coils somehow spring a leak inside of there. But even if that happens, you're supposed to be okay. I wouldn't personally take a shot of this, but you're supposed to be okay if you do. It's just kind of slimy, but it prevents freezing. And the reason why that's important is, because you could just use water, but the reason why that's important is we run ours at home at 27 degrees. So our glycol sits at 27 degrees, so when we ferment, it will cool quickly, and when we cold crash, if cold crashing is, we also use it, it's important for cold crashing, and you need to have below freezing to be able to cold crash, because I'm trying to keep it right above freezing for cold crashing. So that's what we do. And this, I think we bought like what did we get, Jamie, 4 gallons? Did we get 4 gallons for $100? Is that what we got at Tractor Supply?
From Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
We got our last.
The first one we got from a Tractor Supply, they sell it. The next one from Amazon, I think it's like $100 for 4 gallons, and it's a 2-to-1 mixture. The most efficient ratio is like 38%, but who cares, right? Just do 2-to-1, it'll be simple. And then you just fill it up and check for leaks, and it won't freeze. I know people who run it at 23 degrees, So you can keep it at 23 degrees, which is pretty good. So,
But the temperature control is gonna be the pump going on and off, right?
well, there's two. There'll be the temperature control. One will control the temperature of the glycol because as it runs through the fermenters, the glycol is going to heat up because it's going through there, heating up and depositing it back inside the cooler. And so that heats up. So the air conditioner will continually kick on and off to cool that to whatever temperature you set it at. And then the other one will control the pumps for that runs in your fermenter. But that won't ever be as cool as 32 degrees, right? So.
The pump will turn on and off.
Yes, yeah, controlled by the ink birds.
So what kind of water do you use? Do you have to use distilled water or regular water? Or
I just
doesn't
use
matter?
tap water. Yeah, it's not going in your beer. I mean, if you go in your beer, you got a problem and you need to stop doing it. You're not going to be drinking that beer. So just use whatever beer you got. All right. So connect the AC power supply to the temperature control unit. Basically just putting everything back together. I put a splitter in the cooling section of the Inkbird so you can run the AC unit and the aquarium chiller at the same time. But if you don't have the aquarium chiller, it'll still work. It's not that big of a deal. And then you just set up the other one. I don't know. I mean, are you guys familiar with Inkbirds or the Spike Inkbirds, whatever they're called? They're pretty self-explanatory. You got to program them. You don't really program, you just set the temperature. It's not that difficult. Spike is easier than Inkbird once to set also. But so now you're ready to brew. So here it is. I put it all back together. So like for this one, you don't necessarily have to build a box. I know I showed you my fancy little box in the beginning. You don't have to do that, right? You can just put the cover back on. You have to leave this side out, but who cares? And you don't even need a cooler this big, right? So I just got this because that was $4. So you can just set this in your garage or your basement and you're ready to go. The one that Jamie and I made initially 6 years ago, it was a little bit more powerful because we were trying to brew multiple beers at the same time. I actually think this might work because it's a bigger surface that's going to be cold, but I don't know because I haven't used it for that, but I think it would.
You're gonna be limited by what your chilling output.
Right. But I know I could do two easy. I could brew two different beers at the same time easy. I would, if it weren't all lagers. I mean, you don't want to definitely do all lagers at the same time. You don't want to cold crash all at the same time. For NHC, Jamie and I had all four going, and we were cold crashing like what, 3 at the same time, and it was struggling. And I was like, oh man, this is not good. This is not good.
I will say on the cold crash, like on the propylene glycol, like more is not necessarily better. Like
Right.
If you get 100%, it's not as efficient bringing that back down.
Yeah. So try to time it or just stagger it a little bit, but it still worked. I mean, mine still works. I have not done anything with that. The one I built 6 years ago, I have just left it alone. One time we accidentally plugged in the wrong fermenter and it dumped all the glycol out on the floor. But because I have 4 of them, right? So I plugged in the wrong one and it wasn't the one that I was hooked up to the fermenter. So
How slick was
we
that?
we come back downstairs and it was like there's 48 quarts of water and glycol on the floor and it was kind of slimy, but that's why we bought the second one from Amazon. But so that's it. So here's ours again, and this is just to show you how you can customize. This is the first one I built. You don't need to do all this. You can just cut a notch and put it in there. I think this is overkill, but I put little like barbed splitters in there and collected each line on each side, and here's all the pumps that are connected to it to control each fermenter. But you don't need to do this. Here's the spray foam. When I touched on the spray foam. That's just filling in that notch that I cut. So you don't have to do that. I mean, it's more efficient. That's all it is. But you don't have to do any of those things. And so you can make this you can customize it to fit your brewing system.
Cody, do you have a spray foam in there because yours is in the garage or?
Mine's in the basement. I did that because when I read the first thing I read about it, it said to put spray foam in. And so I filled it up with spray foam, then you cut it flat so the lid will fit on there. That's the only reason I did it. I don't regret it. It's not like it's a big deal. I mean, but these are all lines running to the fermenter. And here's a notch I cut in the side, which I didn't use spray film for because I have so many probes and other lines running in there. I had to cut another notch in the side just so there was space to get in there so we can shut the lid.
Did you do like a thermal well, or are you just dropping the ink or probe?
I'm just dropping the Inkberg probe straight in there. That's all I'm doing.
So one thing to consider when you're doing setup like this, where it's kind of enclosed and everything, is like the amount of air that you're pulling in versus what you're pushing out. They need to be equal, and so you really need to make sure that there's plenty of. You can kind of see I'm guessing it's like galvanized mesh or something like that.
Hey, it's just plastic mesh, but yeah.
Yeah, so you just need to make sure that anything from the backside, you have plenty of airspace to pull and push out back.
So on the ends, and you can't see it on the box, based on what John said, I have almost full sheets of this on the end, both of these ends. And it's more important on the part where the fan blows out, because the way window air conditioners work is it takes the heat and it blows it out, which is why that part sits outside of a window. And obviously when you're indoors, that heat isn't going anywhere. And I'm not necessarily trying to cool the room, I'm just trying to cool the cooler. But if you're in a closet, you might run into some problems. So don't put it in your closet. But anyway, you can make this as customizable as you want. And like I said, ours has worked since 2019, and I have no complaints. I'm amazed that it worked, to be honest with you. And when I tell you, like, the times we're not burning, it would be beneficial if I went and unplugged it. And I don't, I just leave it plugged in. So it's basically been running for 5 years, and I'm amazed that it still works. And I bought this whole air conditioner thing, not the box, but the air conditioner for like $65 back in 2019. So that's basically it. So now, if everybody wants to come look, does anybody have a question? Sorry.
I saw something.
Yeah, so everything you've said has been about fermentation control. Can you use this to cool wort?
Sure, and people do that. I know people that will use this instead of using a chiller. They'll just drop the coil into their wort and use that as a cooler instead of running it through the.
But you don't do that?
I don't do that.
Okay.
No, because our setup is just we set it up the way we have it set. And this is like on a different floor of our house, so it's just a thing. There's other ways to achieve this. I've seen people use just like a freezer, and they have a big chest freezer, and they will have a tub of glycol, and they'll just use a pump next to where they keep their beers. You could do that as well. I think, where's Logan? Didn't Jeff Owsley's, you got Jeff Owsley's old one, and it's run through an aquarium, right?
Oh, I don't have his old chiller. I got his decorator.
Okay. And I also I've seen a guy use a, just like I don't know, go ahead. Who had a question over here?
No questions. We were just saying, I have Owsley's old SS Brewtech.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there's other things you could do, and you don't have to use glycol either. You could use water, you just got to keep it above 32 degrees. That's the whole point. We like to cold crash, and to be effective at cold crash, you want to be, in my opinion, right above freezing. But we have a 2-degree temperature variation where a heater will kick on if it drops below that. If it gets above 2 degrees, then the glycol pump will kick on. So, but there's other ways to do this too. This is just the way that we use it. So,
I found it's worth it to spend the money on the Inkbird temperature controller.
Yeah.
I bought an off-brand one time, and it was too sensitive. It kept making the air conditioner turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. And that's real hard on the unit, and I wound up ruining a cake freezer with that.
Well, most of them will have a delay on that to avoid that. At least mine does, and it's just a cheapie.
This was
Like a
wild.
5-minute delay.
So they make, on the Inkbirds, I'm glad you brought that up. So on the Inkbirds, right, there's ones that you can hardwire in for $5 more. It was like $5 or $6 more. You can buy one you can just plug in, so you don't have to mess with hardwiring it. Now, in the beginning, people just had, that was the only option. So I understand why everybody was doing that. $6 more is just save the headache. You didn't have to mess with wiring. You can just plug it in. I've only used Inkbird and Spike. Spike ones are easier to navigate through, but even the Inkbirds aren't that hard. So,
No, and I get your point on that. For like $30, it's like why
Right.
go with an off-brand? You can get the name brand one for $30.
on our system, I just built this for this presentation. And again, $25 for the air conditioner, $4 for the for the cooler, and then I already had the Inkbirds, and pretty much that's it, right? And so, other than that, anybody here could do this. Everybody in this room is smart, and anybody can do it. So, and I've been pleasantly surprised with it. So, oh, sorry, go. Oh, absolutely. As long as it's analog or manual. Okay. Okay, so when you say cleaning, is it just like the evaporator coil on the outside that needs to be cleaned, or?
think so, because I did, last year when it's not doing too well.
Right,
It's doing, but not real good.
right,
I took a 100-pound PSI in my little tank and blew it out and it worked better.
okay,
These stuff flies off of the floor.
yeah,
And if you look online, they have a way to do that, and you can even buy kits that have some solution and stuff.
right. And if you used yours and you took it apart, it'll be right there. You can blow it out, and you can spray it out. You can just spray it out with water. I mean, it's not, you can't, you gotta wait for it to dry, but. Right. Okay. What?
If anybody wants a
Free one to play with.
that wants to try this is an opportunity to go talk to John today.
I mean, if you wait until fall or winter, these are going to be, when I say they're like right now, they're $50 to $100. In the winter or late fall, you'll find them all probably under $50 because people just want to get rid of them. And we're looking for the manual ones, which are the less desirable ones, but that's the ones that we want. So just look, wait, and do that. So. And as you can hear, like, this one's not even that loud. I don't know how it's like for Mike County. Can you hear that back there, Mike? Yeah, so it's not even that loud. And so, you know, I don't have a problem with them, but that's, you can make good beer without doing this, but it does help control your fermentation temperature. Other things you can use with this is, and I've thought about this, is they make transfer lines for when like you're serving beer in bars or casinos. They'll transfer the beer from wherever it's stored at all the way to the distribution point, and they make transfer lines where the beer line will run inside of a glycol line, and so it'll keep it cold. So if you like had this down in your basement and you just drilled a hole upstairs, you can just put taps on your wall and just pour right there. And you wouldn't have the big space where you're holding all the beer. So I always think that's a cool idea to do too. So Well, that's a good question. Some people have different ideas, Candace. That's all I can tell you. Some people don't want spigot or beer cats on the walls, because, you know.
Not even the fancy ones?
Yeah. Well. So, all right. So if anybody wants to see a demonstration, or I'll explain what I did over there, so you can see it in use. Hopefully it's.
51.2.
What's it at?
51.2.
So Eric says it's 51 degrees right now. So it was at 85. So that time when I said it has dropped 30 some degrees, which is pretty amazing if you ask me.
That's filling water.
I can't drop it lower. I could set the temperature lower, but I'm afraid it'll freeze if I set it too low. So that's why I kept it at this. So that's pretty fast if you ask me. So
Glycol should cool even faster than that.
see, I didn't even know that. I mean, that's why you guys are all so smart here. Everybody will be able to do this in like 2 seconds. All right, so let's go back there and I'll explain what I did.